folks, welcome back to the Mosin Man channel, and for today I was going to talk about some Finnish pistols, specifically the Lahti L35, and unfortunately my collection, I don't have a really crappy copy of it. I don't have a Husqvarna M40. Anyone here got a Husqvarna? Well, who's this? Thank you very much for visiting, Milsurp Mike. Look what he's got.
Yeah, I got this crappy copy here, only good for 3,000 rounds.
Oh, so tell me about your crappy copy there, Mike.
Well, this had actually made it to the Danish police at some point. I will let you get into the history of it when you talk about your Lahtis, because that came first, obviously, 35, 40. But, yeah, this basically, Sweden was hard up to prepare for World War II, which, fortunately for them, they didn't participate in very much, but they were officially neutral, but they were looking for pistols. They tried to import some Lahtis, but they were unable to because Finland needed everything that they could get their hands on. So they got licensed, and Husqvarna made the M40, and he will go over like some of the differences here in a little bit. But basically, mine just eventually it made it to the Danish police, and I'll get into a little bit about that later. So your channel is.
Well, thanks, Mike. Yeah, well, I appreciate you bringing that by. And yeah, I have a few Lahti L35s. And with the Finnish Lahti L35, you have four main varieties. And well, first, let's talk about the history a little bit. So you've got Aino Lahti, and he, after World War I, gets into small arms designs. And he contributes to a lot of designs. He contributes to the KP-31, to the LS-26, and eventually he's working on a pistol. And what becomes the L35 looks a lot like a Luger. This is not a Luger. People always think that this is a Luger. And there's a number of series, and we're going to get into those and what separates a Series 1 from a Series 2 from a Series 3, and we're not going to talk about the Series 4. I consider the Series 4 even less desirable than a Husqvarna copy. And the Lahti L35 is a very heavy 9mm pistol. It's got a slide reminiscent of a Bergmann Bayard or a C96, but it's got a grip style reminiscent of a Luger. And you get those two together, Finns put a bolt accelerator in it as well, so it would work in sub-zero temperatures. There's accounts of Finnish troops fighting the Russians with the temperature being -50 to below, and the pistols are still working fine. Nothing else is working, but the guy's L35 pistol works just fine. So we've got a few different varieties out here on the table, and I'll get some detailed pictures later on. But we've got three main varieties used during World War II. We've got the Series 1 right here. Then we've got a Series, oh, that's a Series 3, I'm sorry. We've got a Series 2, and then a Series 3. And a Series 1 has this weird humpback portion right here. It's got some cuts in the slide for lightning. And these are actually the most common variety of a Lahti L35 in Finnish service. They make about 2,600 of them. However, a lot like Mike's going to tell us about the Husqvarna, the slides had a habit of cracking. Just like the Swedes used some really hot ammo. What was the name of that round they used with the...
I know the Swedes, theirs was for the M45 Carl Gustaf machine gun.
Yes, exactly. For the Carl Gustaf. I'm an idiot, couldn't remember that. The Finns had the M31 Soimi submachine gun. Same idea, really hot round, 9mm. No need to have two types of ammo. Let's only have one type of ammo. And they crack the slides on them. So you'll see a lot of Finnish Lahtis with replacement slides, and they'll either be blank or they'll have a Valmet on the top of them. This Series 1 still has the original slide, and eventually they realized that they're having a lot of trouble making these things quickly. Finland's a very small country. They have a very small domestic arms industry, and they mobilize a huge portion of their population during World War II. Finland is a country of about 4 million people during World War II. Over 400,000 Finns serve at one point in the Finnish army. So you have 10% of your total population under arms. That's why we have all these pistols out here, because the Finns used all of these in World War II. It was really hard to equip an army, and you ended up having to use a combination of domestically produced pistols, such as the Lahti, stuff that you got from your friends, such as the Swedes, such as an M1907 here, stuff you captured from the Russians, such as a Nagant 1895 here, or stuff that you bought from someone else, such as a Browning High Power from the Belgians right here. And with the Lahti L35, they try and streamline it a little bit, and they cut back some of the things they did in terms of the more frivolous stuff that really didn't matter. Instead of saving weight, there's not as many cuts on it, there's less machining. So they get to the Series 2, and the Series 2 is kind of an intermediate pistol. It's actually the rarest version of a Finnish Lahti L35 you can find. They made about 1,000 Series 2, and then eventually they get to the Series 3. And the Series 3, if I can see that one right there, I'm going to look at them, the combination, they're pretty much the same from the top on down. The Swedes don't have the loaded chamber indicator like the Finns had. Otherwise, the slides are pretty much exactly the same on an M40 and on a Series 3 L35. And the Series 3 L35 is the ones the Finns make through the end of World War II. They make about 2,000 of them. And the war ends, and they have a bunch of spare parts left over. And VKT, which is the state rifle factory of Finland, don't even ask me to try and say the Finnish word for it, I can't, becomes Valmet after World War II is over. And they've got a bunch of parts left over, so they end up making these pistols, and that's what you call a Series 4. And if you're ever on the wonderful site of Gunbroker, I call it Funbroker, you'll see a bunch of Lahtis on there. If they're really expensive, they're probably a Series 1, 2, or 3. If they're a little bit cheaper, they're probably a Series 4. And the Series 4s are all commercial. They were never used by the Finnish military. They were sold commercially, and the Israelis bought a number of them too, maybe 1,000 or so after the end of World War II. Now, talking about your M40 a little bit more, what is that thing used to again, Mike?
Well, going by my research, which I did this video about 4 years ago, didn't get replaced officially until 1988, I think, when they adopted their version of the Glock 17. But the problem with the Swedish version, the M40, was Sweden had a hard time getting their hands on decent steel. So the steel on this is a lot lesser quality than the steel on that. And as he pointed out, they didn't make nerfed 9mm rounds. They were still shooting the same 9mm rounds they were using in their submachine guns. And the expected life on these were about 3,000 rounds, they found out. So basically, to get your hands on one of the Swedish models, because there were like 86,000 made, how many were made of those again?
Counting the bastardized post-World War II Series 4s, about 9,000.
So there were 86,000 of these made, but if I remember right, which, like I said, that was a long time ago, and I just quickly watched my video again, there might have only made like 3,000 or 4,000 that survived, because when Sweden adopted their version of the Glock 17, they destroyed all these because they, instead of selling it to their population, or they figured the cracking issue was too much of a danger. So how most of these made it here were through the Danish police, because the Danish police adopted these, and there are various, the biggest way you can tell, and I'll send him a picture he can pop in there, but there's a big billboard here with the RPLTS, and there's a number of whatever, but that's a Danish police marking. Now, Denmark. Sometimes, like most idiot Americans, I get Danish and Dutch mixed up, and I want to make sure I said that correctly. But one thing on this pistol, there's usually a prefix letter before the serial number, and that connotated what the what branch that it went to, or if it was sold to civilians, or if it was made with a, if it said D, it would be imported to Denmark. Well, mine doesn't have any, so this was in the Swedish Army stores at some point, and the proof marking back here is not what should have been for Danish police. So I'm thinking the story on this is that at some point in 1943, 1944, the Swedish kind of secretly started training Danish refugees and Norwegian refugees. I'm not sure if it's commandos, but started training them to go fight against Germany secretly. But since Sweden was neutral, that's a big no-no. So, and the pistol that they armed the Danes with came straight out of the Army stores. So this doesn't have the D prefix. So, and they said that the serial number, the serial numbers that went with them, this falls right in the middle of that. So I think that this was actually part of them that went to Denmark that way with the secretly trained Danish commandos or whatever, and of course all those ended up with the Denmark police later on. So anyway, that's just my little story on this, but there's the cracking issue. When I fired this, it shot fairly well, 3 nice magazines. Oh, and another thing too, I forgot to mention why this isn't original Danish police. It came with the brown holster. Most Danish police had the black holster, and the brown holster is what was with the Swedish Army. So anyway, that's just a little bit about mine. I'm sure he will actually correct me if I was wrong on some of that. But
no, you nailed everything, Mike. That's a really neat pistol. If I was going to own an M40, I'd own a Danish one with the cool marks on the side of the frame like that. I think that's pretty neat. I passed on getting one a while back, and I do regret that. And I will say that the cracking issue with the frames or the slides wasn't limited to the Swedish pistols. The Finns also had that problem, and they took the pistol out of service after the war. And one of the neat connections we actually have on the table is, for a little while with the M40s, this is a Husqvarna M1907. It's basically a Browning 1903 made in Sweden. And the Swedes actually put this thing back into service in the 1980s because the Glock 17, their version of it, wasn't available yet, and they were too worried about the cracked frame. So 9mm Browning long, they've been sitting in storage. They pulled these back out and they used them for a few years. However, this example is Finnish marked. This one went through Finland. I'll be doing a separate video on it. When the Swedish volunteers, of which there were about 7,000, came to Finland in 1939 and 1940, when they left, they conveniently left all their small arms behind with them. So your Swedish Mausers, Swedish Husqvarna 1907s, as well as some Swedish BARs and other weapons were all nicely left for the Finns to use in their fight against the Russians. Going back to the L-35s, you do want to check the slide for cracks. If you ever have the chance to buy one, I would inspect it thoroughly. I would take it apart. I'd look for cracks in the slide, just as you would do with an M40. And then if you're able to find one, the wartime series, the Series 1, the Series 2, and the Series 3, of which there's pictures in this video showing what they look like, are going to be your more desirable ones. If you really want to have a finished one and you can't seem to find one of those, well, Series 4 will do the trick for you. It's almost exactly the same thing as a Series 3. A lot of them still have the loaded chamber indicator right here. You got a little notch on there that pops up when you have a round in the chamber. Later on, the Series 4, they got rid of it. They'll have a flat side that'll look exactly the same as an M40 right there. But the Series 1, Series 2, and Series 3 all have that. Later on, about halfway through the Series 4, they get rid of it. That's about all I got on the L35. I'm going to have more videos on all the other pistols you see on the table. Real quick and brief, we've got the Mauser C96, all 3 wartime series of the L35, Browning 1907, Nagant revolver, the Shorty NKVD Nagant revolver, Finnish marked of course. We've got a Parabellum M23 with the stock, and then we've got a Browning high power. I'll be putting all these up later on, talking about how the Finns used them, how many of them they got, how much service they saw. I'm really grateful that I got to have a video with Mike while I was out here. He's been a good friend, he's been a good mentor, and you should definitely check out his channel.
And I'm glad I got to do a couple videos with you. I'm jealous of how you have all that information in your head and it's actually to stay there instead of just reading up on it and then once I'm done with the video so I'm actually jealous of that. But I'm glad to get to do a video with you. So again, make sure you subscribe to him. He's gonna have a lot of quality work coming up.
Awesome. Hey, it was a pleasure, Mike.
It was a pleasure.